Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today not only do we crown our top 6 most valuable Pokemon from Season 1 of the PokeType League, but we crown our inaugural Oak Medallion recipient.
3, 2, 1, go!
Similar to our Rowan Award list, the list will go in descending order until we reach our top Pokemon, the Oak Medallion winner. Let us know in the comments below which Pokemon you think will make up our team, but before we get into them, the expected admin to explain how the Pokemon got here. The method used to determine this was after every match, 3 Pokemon would be voted for best in game. 3 votes for the top Pokemon, 2 votes for the second, and 1 vote for third. In getting these votes, it meant you were in the top 25% of the matchup. Things taken into consideration when giving these votes were time in game, setups performed, hits withstood, offenses brought, eliminations, and also comments from the fan base. That is right, I felt that what you said mattered in the vote, and I appreciate the help you all gave. All of these would be considered when giving the votes, and this may be an imperfect system because some Pokemon would have a great game, but they would still miss out on votes. But that is part of the spectacle and controversy of it all. The Oak Medallion does include a tiebreaker to avoid a draw if able. The obvious goes to the Pokemon with the most votes, but from there it gets broken down into the Pokemon with the less games will place higher. If the Pokemon have played in the same amount of games, it goes to the Pokemon who polled votes in more games. I went with this over more best on fields as it rewarded the Pokemon who showed that consistency to always be in the top 3. But from there, if they polled votes in the same number of games, the one with more best on fields will receive the nod. From there, yes, Pokemon can tie for their placings. But enough of that stuff, let's get into the team, and starting with the last member to make it into the top 6 Pokemon is a Pokemon from the actual last place team, Brute Bonnet. Even after a really poor showing from the Striaton Greens this season, Brute Bonnet was actually able to still shine amongst the leaves, displaying impressive performances over its 11 games it played in, amassing 13 votes in the season. It actually tied with multiple other Pokemon in getting these votes, but the part that got Brute Bonnet into the top 6 is that it was consistent enough to get votes in 8 of its 11 games. Although it wasn't enough to get the Striaton Greens away from the Twisted Spoon, it was enough to bring a little respect back to the grass type team. The 5th member of the top 6 Pokemon is the pseudo-legendary Hydreigon. Hydreigon led the Dark-type Spikemas Swaygrunts throughout the season, also getting 13 votes, but what put it above Brute Bonnet is that Hydreigon only played in 10 games this season, polling votes in 6 of them. Part of what makes this showing by Hydreigon so impressive is this evil one's abilities were still able to be on display in an Elite 4 side that included the likes of Luxray and King Gambit, and included 3 Pokemon from the same team that scored more eliminations. Just goes to show that there is more to being an asset than just eliminating opponents. And whilst on the topic of pseudo-legendaries, in 3rd place on this team, because we actually ended up with a tie, is the 4-Tree Tempest Salamence. Salamence was able to soar high in its placing on the flying type side, polling 14 votes throughout the season. And just as impressive as those 14 votes is that it was actually able to get them in only 5 games, receiving top honours in 4 of them. Salamence was able to display a dominating force, amassing 12 eliminations amongst a very diverse team, but as previously mentioned, it is not the only one occupying 3rd place in this team. Also having to share that placing with none other than the Paradox Pokemon from the last place Striaton Greens, Brute Bonnet. Wait, hold on, that's not right. Brute Bonnet is the last member of this team. Something isn't right with this visual, like it's some kind of... And that explains it. Let's try this again. Sharing 3rd place with Salamence is the very mischievous and illusionary Hisuian Zoroark. Zoroark was able to make the most of its misleading abilities, really finding its rhythm in the latter half of the season, also getting top votes 4 times, including in one of the best plays of trickery to be seen all season. It was able to maximize its speed and offensive prowess to really hold off opposing teams, and its fortune to maintain its illusions for the lengths it did were incredibly impressive. Coming in 2nd place with an unbelievable and unexpected performance is the sturdy Forretress. Now, if you had told me at the start of this season that our runner-up for most valuable Pokemon this season would be Forretress, I would not have believed you. It barely even made the league, being the final draft pick for the Olivine Carbons. But after an incredibly consistent season, Forretress showed no fear and true resilience for the Steel-type side, and received 15 votes from 7 of its 11 games, including one of my favourite performances all season when under the heat against the Motorstoke engines. Best let's not forget the physical capabilities of this Bug Steel type going forward. And before we get into our Oak Medallion recipient, let us go through this season's dishonorable mentions. Now the Pokemon I am about to mention were unable to receive a single vote this season, and that consists of Haxorus, Gallade, Delphox, Golduck, Garganacl, and Iron Treads. But now that we've highlighted our bottom 6, let's finish our top 6 with our inaugural Oak Medallion winner. Decidueye. Decidueye may have been the runner-up in the first row in award count, but it was able to be a dominating force in an already unstoppable Heart-Home Spectres. And although Decidueye is one of the slower Pokemon on its side, that did not prevent it from consistently making an impact, getting 15 votes across 6 of its 10 appearances, including 4 best on fields. And luckily for Decidueye, if it wasn't for Forretress's unfortunate appearance in round 19, it would have received the runner-up for a second medallion. I cannot wait to see this Pokemon shine next season as our first Oak Medallion recipient. But before we get there, I look forward to seeing these 6 Pokemon team up in our All-Star game next week. Until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw here, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, you are awesome. And I'll see you when you see me.